I don't want to automate just to automate. I want to automate with a goal in mind, and whether it's efficiency or safety or whatever it is. And a lot of the challenges with the automation side is, how do I make it so it's simple? It's simple, number one, and then two, it works. It does what it says it's going to do, and it's simple to deploy.
Welcome to Load It or Leave It with your host, Camp Jennings, presented by Henry North. We're diving into the world of material handling and industrial automation. The people, the products, and the ideas shaping what's next. Expect honest takes, smart insights, and real conversations with the folks who make this industry move. This is Load It or Leave It.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Load It or Leave It podcast. Today, my co-founder and business partner, Scott Smith, is excited to have a conversation with Martin Boyd, the CMO with Big Joe. Fascinating guy, engineer turned marketing expert, 30 years across the biggest names in the industry, Toyota, Hyster, Yale, Cascade, etc. You'll learn about his journey, what pulled him to Big Joe, and honestly, how starting as an engineer shaped the way he runs marketing now. You'll hear him dig into the big shifts hitting the material handling industry, whether it's lithium and IC to electric, automation, and honestly, just what dealerships need to be doing to stay relevant today. You'll hear him talk about leadership and marketing in between. So I hope you guys enjoy this awesome conversation between Scott and Martin.
Marty, good to see you. Welcome on. How's life going your way?
Good, Scott. How are you?
No complaints. Hey, man, before we jump straight into things today, I know we got a lot of great topics to dive into, but man, I know you're an East Coast guy, moved out to West Coast. What's the weekends look like for you these days?
Good question, because right now I'm in the middle of doing yard work, and it seems like this time of year, that's all my time is spent doing, is getting the backyard prepared for the summer months. But right now, as you can see it, well, you can't see it behind me, but it's dumping rain here in Portland, which is traditional Portland weather. But I think I left all my hobbies down in California some 12 years ago when I moved up here to Portland. My surfing and my hockey days and my building cars, that all seems to be in my past now. And I think most of my time is being consumed by yard work, unfortunately.
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a little slow Saturday in the yard, though. I could imagine that's a great way to kind of wind down, especially with so much travel. I think you just got back from Modex last week. How was the show for you guys?
It was extremely busy. I pulled up something on LinkedIn about Modex, and they had over 50,000 attendees from like 130 some odd countries. And I think they had over 1,000 exhibitors there. So it was crazy. I spent a lot of my time both inside and outside the booth doing a lot of media stuff. But when I was in the booth, I mean, it was just buzzing. I mean, people were really engaged, and they were looking at our products and talking about our solutions. I thought last year's ProMat show was good. I think this year's Modex show topped that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We went up to Chicago for ProMat for the first time last year. And with us being down here in the Southeast, we flew our team in for Modex this year. And man, those shows are getting more and more impressive, busier, more exhibitors. It's really cool to kind of see the industry continue to grow and expand and kind of have everybody into town for the week. Man, I know for people who kind of listen to the podcast, we always start these things off with a fun entrepreneurial question, but kind of given your expertise in the industry and what you've kind of been doing the last handful of years, I think changing this question up for you could be fun. Coming off the heels of Modex last week, man, just from your opinion, what was kind of the most exciting thing that you saw, or the best booth or display from like a marketing or CMO perspective?
Well, again, like I said earlier, I mean, it was such a huge show, and with 1,000 exhibitors, I wanted to see if I could visit every single one exhibit, but that's obviously very difficult and challenging. I was only there for the Monday and Tuesday before I had to head out of town on Wednesday. A lot of automation. I mean, everywhere you look, there's something moving in a booth, and it's moving by itself. So there was a lot of robots and a lot of AMRs, autonomous mobile robots that were driving around. But I'm going to be biased. I liked our booth the best. When somebody casually just walks by our Big Joe booth, they may overlook some of our products because they look like internal combustion type products. But we had a real fun eye catcher that we did it ProMat last year as well. We call it the smoke box. It's a big display, and inside it is this 1972 or 1973 old, class 4 IC cushion propane forklift, and it's all beaten up. I mean, you can't even tell what the brand is. I think it's been wiped off, but we have that in this box, and you see the propane tank on the back, and we fill it up with smoke, and there's subliminal messages in there that says, here's all the reasons why you can't go electric. And what we want to do is we want to stop people in their tracks, take a look at this smoke box with this old forklift in it, and at the top it's got a caption that says, "Are you stuck in the past?" And by having people stop and look at that, we want them to take a look at our booth again and recognize that these forklifts that we have on our booth, they're not propane and they're not diesel. They're all integrated lithium electric. So it was fun doing it last year. I think it got even more interest this year because I think people are really starting to understand who Big Joe is and what our mission is, and what we're really setting out to do. So it really got a lot of attention. And for that, again, being biased, I think ours was the best booth.
No, I love it. I love it. Maybe I teed that one up for you on that one. But I will tell you, man, my Apple Watch, I was averaging about 20,000 steps a day. So my Cole Haans need to be replaced this week. But the Big Joe booth did look good. It was a busy booth too. Seemed like there was always 30, 40, 50 people kind of standing around, enjoying kind of the hype or the buzz in the air. And I know you mentioned a few of those kind of key terms or topics that hopefully we can dive into in detail today. Before we do, I'd love to talk a little bit more about you and your experience in the industry. I know you're a CMO for Big Joe today, but do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about your journey in material handling so far?
I've been in this industry for 34 years. Probably the best place to start is college. So I grew up in New Jersey. I went to a school called Trenton State College, which is now called the College in New Jersey. And I was an engineering student there. And, like many people's stories, it all involves a girl. So the girl that I dated for 3 years in college and 2 years outside of college, her brother worked for a company called Yale in Flemington, New Jersey. And as an engineering graduate, I was looking to get into the engineering world. And that was an opportunity that her brother told me about because he was an engineer that went to school at NJIT. And he said, "Hey, this is a good opportunity to get into the forklift business." I knew nothing about forklifts. So that's what I did. I interviewed for the job at Hyster Yale back in New Jersey when they had a New Jersey facility. I did design engineering for, 4 years. Up until the late 90s. And then I jumped over to the other side of the wall and did some technical service engineering, really just answering the calls from the dealers that were having issues with their Hyster and Yale forklifts and helping them troubleshoot and helping identify root cause and how we can fix it. So that was really a good entrance into the market, having, both design engineering experience and then the service engineering experience. Eventually, they closed New Jersey down. I stayed with Hyster Yale Group. I ended up at their Berea, Kentucky manufacturing facility where I led their service team. I was there for less than a year before a gentleman by the name of Brett Wood. People in the forklift industry know Brett Wood very well. He's the CEO of Toyota Material Handling North America. He called me. I was 29 years old. He called me up and said, "Hey, you have any interest on moving to the West Coast and working for Toyota as in product management and truly into the marketing side of the business?" And that was my first entrance into the marketing side of the business and was working for Toyota. So that was in Southern California. I stayed with Brett and the team there for a total of 14 years, 14 great years, and eventually made my way up to become their vice president of product management and marketing and a slew of other things. And then they decided to move to Indiana. I left the industry for a hot second, realized how much I missed the industry and especially all the people in the industry. We're an industry that has got just filled with amazing, passionate people. And I really missed that. I came back to the industry, and this is how I got up to Portland. I worked for Cascade Corporation for 2 years. And then another gentleman who I knew very well, who's the president of Hyster Yale Group, he called me up. His name is Chuck Pasquarelli, who's a very dear friend of mine, like Brett Wood is. And he called me up and said it was time for me to get back to the forklifts. I did that for 8 years with Hyster Yale Group. And then I left there 2 years ago and ended up here with Big Joe.
I know when we first had a chance to meet each other, it's not too often you get a chance to rub shoulders with a guy who's been in some of the biggest names in the industry for a couple of decades. So excited to kind of unpack some of your experience and perspective today and in leadership and some of the cool things that are happening with your organization today. But maybe we can start there, like, with your experiences on the engineering side, Heister, Yale, Toyota, Cascade. What drew you to Big Joe?
Well, first, I do have to look back at my career, and I do this quite often as I reach my older years in the industry. And I really do value the experiences that I had, at Heister Yale, starting there and then going to Toyota, and then the 2 years I had at Cascade, and then coming back to Heister Yale to work for Chuck and the team there. I mean, there are so many valuable lessons that I learned from each one of those organizations that I've taken here. When I voluntarily left Heister Yale Group, it was really a craving that I had inside to be a part of something bigger. I'm still an engineer inside, even though I've been on the marketing side for so many years now. I think my engineering days are so far behind me. I almost can't even remember what it was like to be an engineer. But still, as an engineer, I still have the DNA that we all share, which is we love to build things. We like to envision something and we like to build great things, and we want to see those things be successful, whether it's our personal life or whether it's our career. And, I found myself in a position at this stage of my career where I really wanted to be a part of something bigger and be a part of something where we're building something. That was a challenge to try to find that, because that's like a needle in a haystack in many cases. I think everybody searches for that in some respects. But I also wrote a list on my whiteboard. What are the three things that I require of myself if I'm going to join another company, whether it's inside the industry or outside the industry? I wanted to find a company that was very dead focused on what it wanted to achieve, and it had a strategy and a vision and a plan on how to accomplish that. So focus was really key. I wanted to work with amongst a group of individuals at the leadership level that had enormous levels of integrity. Integrity for me is everything. And there's a ton of people in this industry that have an enormous amount of integrity. And that was an absolute must for me. And then the last thing was really culture, is to line myself up with an organization that had a culture that really aligned with where I could really improve and contribute to the success of the organization. So focus, integrity, culture, everything. I looked at the industry, and I even looked outside the industry to say, how am I going to do this? Because I think it's impossible. I don't think there was a company that could check all those boxes. Out of nowhere, by the grace of God, this opportunity with Big Joe came up. Initially dismissed it as not being able to check any of those boxes. Quite honestly, it was just because of ignorance on my part, because I didn't know too much about Big Joe. But I took the time and I really peeled the layers back and really saw the leadership team. And Dan Roskam, who's our CEO North America, he had all the elements that I was looking for in a leader with integrity. The culture of the Big Joe organization is amazing. We have an amazing brand. And lastly, the focus was there. I mean, we are laser dead set and focused on being the leaders in electrification with some of the disruptive solutions that we have in the market today. I think it was just meant to be. All my 30 plus years experience in the industry, I really felt at that point it lended myself well to this job as chief marketing officer at Big Joe. And we're having fun. And I don't think many people in the industry can really say with confidence that they're having fun, but everybody here at Big Joe is focused on what we're doing, and we're having fun doing it. And do we have challenges? Absolutely. I mean, that's why we come to work every day, but we're energized and charged up every day to attack the things that we need to attack to make sure that we're progressing and continuously growing in this market.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear. I love the three things on the whiteboard too when considering a new gig. A lot of our audience are kind of passive candidates in this industry, always kind of keeping an eye out for what's next. So that's definitely a little gold nugget takeaway for the group there. I will say there seems to be a lot going on at Big Joe. If you've been in the industry for a minute, like obviously that is a name that's been around for quite some time. You see him just about everywhere you go. But I think for some of us, we might just kind of know Big Joe as one thing, and it seems like there's a couple of cool things happening on at the forefront right now. Do you mind kind of speaking to that? Like, who is Big Joe today? What do you guys specialize in?
For those of you that may know Big Joe, or this may be the first time you've heard the Big Joe name, we are an American brand. Our roots are based in Wisconsin. So our original manufacturing facility was based about 40 minutes north of Madison, Wisconsin, where our North American headquarters is based now. But it was a place called Wisconsin Dells. If you've never been there, it's a wild place. It's water slide capital of the world, but it's also the original home base for Big Joe. We still have that facility. We still manufacture some product there, not much, but we still do manufacture a stacker type product out of that facility, and it's where our parts distribution center is. So founded in 1951, Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, 75 years. So we are right now, 2026, celebrating our 75th year anniversary. So we're very excited about that. Our past 75 years has really been focused, and we've really been known for developing kind of disruptive solutions in the warehouse space. So when people do hear Big Joe that are in this industry, they go, "Oh, you're the company that manufactures those really good quality, walkie type products, walkie stackers." And then we have a very, very high quality, well-known product called our Joey lineup of products, which
Oh yeah.
which is for the the order picking, really strong product. Anybody that drives a Joey type product is usually wowed by the experience that it provides. So that's traditionally where we have been as a company. And many people have kind of viewed us in the past as more of a niche player in the warehouse space. And you got your Raymonds and you got your Toyotas and you got your Crowns that are really focused on that warehouse space and very successful in the warehouse space. And then you've got, the Big Joe, which has definitely a footprint in that market, but not at the scale of, say, a Raymond or a Crown. But we are definitely in a transitionary stage of our existence. We talk about the past 75 years. I think we're really, really excited about the next 10 years, about Big Joe really emerging out of our niche badge, as you would say, and really elevating ourselves to be a much bigger player in the market. We're developing Class 1 products. So Class 1 is your sit-down counterbalance electric type products. We've put a lot of energy into attacking that space because there's a massive opportunity right now with all these internal combustion products, both Class 4 cushion tire for indoor usage and Class 5 pneumatic tire for outdoor usage. We see a massive opportunity, and we're really leading the charge in finally providing those customers that are using those products a solution to go over to electric where they haven't been able to do that in the past. So that's kind of our focus. That's who we are as a company. And our vision really is to be a disruptive player in the market, to grow in the market, to grow our distribution channel, to grow our Big Joe brand, and to really attack this IC to E opportunity full force.
The IC to E is still very much a very hot topic today. Mix in some lithium, and there's a lot of questions or challenges and advancements being made in the end users day to day. What does that look like to you? What conversations are y'all having at Big Joe, or what are y'all seeing in the market?
A little over 10 years ago, when I first started hearing chatter about lithium and how there's a better solution out there than the traditional lead acid battery that everybody was used to. Many players in the market and many people I know in the market kind of dismissed it as, oh, this is just the flavor of the day. Lithium will be here for today and then tomorrow it'll be gone. And here we are 10 years later, and there's probably, at last count I had, I think there was 21 different lithium battery suppliers in the market, all providing a different solution. I mean, it's all lithium based, but they all have their angles on how they attack the market and why their solution is best. But ultimately, what their mission is to replace the lead acid batteries with a better chemistry, a better solution that's very low maintenance. The price has gone down. So even when the price was 3 and 4 times that of a lead acid battery, there was still justification in the value. The prices have gotten to a point now where on lithium where it just makes sense as a solution to move from, say, and not in all cases, but in many cases, from lead acid to lithium. So that's the first trend that primarily emerged about 10 years ago, was this trend of lead acid to lithium. That has changed somewhat. I mean, that hasn't changed. That is still going on. That's why these 20 players are out there attacking the space. There's another trend that's evolved from the entrance of lithium into the material handling space, and that's IC to E. Finally, there is a solution out there with lithium that has empowered customers to move from whether it's a propane or a diesel platform over to an electric platform powered by a lithium battery, has really given them a solution that they can now finally make that switch. Lead acid, it was a terrible solution for customers that were driving, propane and diesel trucks, and moving over to a lead acid based solution where all these new pains were introduced that they never even understood until they got into it. And in my past, I've seen customers move from, say, propane to electric, not knowing of all the challenges as it relates to maintaining batteries and charging batteries, and making sure batteries last the life that they said they're going to last. And a lot of that is through maintenance, but watching those customers immediately go back to either propane or going back to diesel because just the pains of lead acid. The entrance of lithium has completely solved all of that. And that's where really Big Joe has focused its efforts, is how do we take that and develop a solution that makes it very easy and the transition very, very simple and seamless to go from IC to E. And that's where we strive to be the leaders in.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like there's definitely been more conversation on the end user, the floor level when it comes to lithium or converting to electric. I remember my very first role in the industry was actually with Crown back in the day, jumping in the back of dock doors, signing up preventative maintenance plans. And a big piece of that was this sulfuric acid buildup on those lead acid batteries and how disgusting those things could get.
Yeah.
And I remember we started talking about lithium to our customers. And I remember calling my sales manager one day and saying, "Hey, John, like, how am I supposed to sign these things up for maintenance?" He was like, we're past that these days. Like, there's a lot of benefits and some ROI when you really kind of begin to invest in that type of solution.
Yeah.
I know when you're looking at Modex and kind of walking the floor, you kind of use the word automation. There's a lot of cool things happening in the industry. How does that whole world get affected by lithium or IC2E or what Big Joe's kind of doing today?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of interaction between, say, lithium and automation. One is obviously with an automation product, you're not going to use an internal combustion type product in an automation environment. It's going to be electric, but automation is really hands off. It's really dealing with a solution that allows what was operators that were using the equipment to be, repurposed and put into other areas of the facility where the value is much, greater for them to be working on that rather than moving, whatever from point A to point B. The last thing you want to have in an automation solution is a power system like lead acid batteries, where it requires a lot of maintenance, a lot of care, and a lot of hand touching. That's where lithium really comes into play with the automation side. It's the best solution for an autonomous environment. Where Big Joe plays into this is, if you had the opportunity to do a podcast with our founder and CEO, John He, you will quickly realize that his ultimate passion is automation. Even though right now Big Joe is focused on the IC2E, I mean, that is our North Star right now. Everything we're doing is focused on being the leaders in IC2E. Ultimately, where this goes, our vision, our ultimate destination is to be the leaders in the autonomous side of the business. That's a very high level, high bar to achieve, because as you could tell just by walking through Modex, what we were both at last week, everybody's got something moving in the booth. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. And it tends to be very confusing. And a lot of these solutions are very complex. People question, how is this going to help my operation? I don't want to automate just to automate. I want to automate with a goal in mind, and whether it's efficiency or safety or whatever it is. And a lot of the challenges with the automation side is, how do I make it so it's simple? It's simple, number one, and then two, it works. It does what it says it's going to do, and it's simple to deploy. And that's really what, Big Joe is focusing on. We may not be known as an autonomous provider or supplier today, but that is going to change very quickly. We are heavily invested into the automation side, developing what we call approachable automation that simply works. And we think that is really ultimately where the entire market is going to be setting their sights on, especially with the entrance of artificial intelligence, AI. How do you leverage AI to make these deployments so they're not so intensive and not so disruptive in your facility? And how do I do it in such a way where it's not intimidating for the end users to deploy it? So again, Big Joe is laser focused on that, and you'll see a lot more coming in the future.
I will say one of the things that I've kind of noticed from the outside looking in is kind of Big Joe's go to market strategy. With you kind of being involved in several different OEMs across your career, in your role today, probably working with a handful of different dealers and distributors across the country or even internationally, what are some of these dealers doing that are really standing out, allowing them to win in the market? Or what are they going to have to continue to evolve and to kind of stay relevant in the industry today?
The distribution channel, I won't speak for the other OEMs because I think they feel the same way. It's everything. The dealers are everything, and they're going through a transition in both areas, IC to E, electrification, as well as the autonomous side. All the dealers, all the distribution suppliers that are out there are looking into these major trends and saying, what does the dealership of tomorrow look like? How do I adapt as a dealer to be able to win in this market, knowing that it is changing very fast? Specifically on the electrification side, or specifically IC to E, there has to be a step change that our dealers go through as it relates to taking advantage of this IC to E and helping and truly partnering with customers and helping them with that transition. Because it's not a matter of just throwing an electric where an IC product was. You have to do a lot more. This is more consultative than anything. You got to look at the facility. What does the grid look like? Do they even have enough power to power chargers, to power the equipment? How do I train operators to, charge forklifts between shifts? There's so much that's at play with it. And really where Big Joe is stepping in and helping with that area is we understand, because the dealers are everything, we are partnering with our dealers as well as the end user customers to help them through that journey, getting the dealers away from this transactional mindset. When you sell let's just say a propane forklift, very transactional. I talk with the customer. He wants a 5,000 pound cushion style electric truck with a 3-stage mast, a backup alarm. And I take the order, I place the order, the truck comes, and when supply chain and lead times were good, 3 months later, you get your forklift, you drop the keys off, and the customer's off and running with his propane truck. You can't do that with an opportunity to move from IC to E. We're working side by side with the dealers to be a little bit more patient with the process, because it's really less about the forklift initially. That becomes the discussion point at the end. And it becomes more about, well, let's do a power study. Let's right size the batteries for the application. And not only the batteries, but let's right size the chargers. Let's determine if your facility has enough power to even do this to begin with. And then lastly, once we get you in the right setup, we'll need to train your operators. Since they're not going to be changing propane tanks or filling up diesel, they're going to be, charging trucks. And what is the right discipline that they have to adapt to in order to keep a lithium, integrated lithium fleet running. So the dealers definitely have to change. It's really not so much about the technology that's going to determine the pace at which ICDE happens. It's really going to be dependent upon the dealers, all the dealers, regardless of what color forklift they sell. It's going to be dependent upon the dealers and how they can approach customers and more of a solution type mindset and get out of that whole transactional mindset that they've been accustomed to in selling to a propane or a diesel user.
I mean, we talk with leaders at different dealers kind of across the OEM network, and it's solution-based selling, consultative sales process is everything, right? If the customer is leading the conversation, leading the RFQ, and you're just submitting an order based off what they're asking for, odds are you're falling behind. The amount of deals you can win doing a power study, consulting about right-sizing that fleet, or even just selling them or consulting with them on what they need in the next 3, 5, 10 years, rather than what's right there in front of them today.
If I could add to that, what makes it even more challenging, this is why Big Joe is really stepping in and truly partnering in the true sense with our dealers, is we as Big Joe, our lithium batteries are integrated into the product. So it's not a slide in, slide out type solution like you're used to with a lead acid or a retrofittable lithium ion that was designed for a truck that was originally intended for a lead acid truck. Ours are intentionally designed to be a one battery per truck solution. With lithium, it just makes sense to have one battery per truck. There's no need for multiple batteries. It's integrated, which tends to be a bit of a challenge for a forklift dealer, because many times over the years, forklift dealers have built strong relationships with their battery partners. And when you have an integrated lithium ion forklift like Big Joe does, there is no battery dealer you're working with. Everything is inclusive. It's basically a one throat to choke approach where Big Joe owns the truck, we own the battery, you as the dealer, you sell both of them together. And it's our job to work with the dealers to get them to understand how to, number one, understand lithium and how it behaves differently than lead acid, but how to sell the entire package as a solution using the telematics, the Big Joe Pulse that we have standard on all of our trucks. How do you use data to convince the customer that, one, they can go electric, they can go away from internal combustion and go to electric. And number two, what is the ideal configuration that I should be configuring the truck to, so I optimize the operation without spending too much money? So it's definitely a shift that the dealers are not used to with the integrated lithium ion approach that we're going with. But it ultimately, all the other OEMs that, many of them that I've worked for, will follow in the footsteps of what Big Joe is doing in the marketplace. So that's why it's exciting when I say it's exciting to be a part of building something, and that this is what we're building.
It's about time those two, the power side and the truck side, were integrated together. I remember 22-year-old Scott, a reach truck, rental truck, into the market, and my ignorant self didn't know that I had to put in an order for a rental power unit in addition to the forklift itself. So there's a rookie mistake there. If I'd have had that solution back in the day, I'd have saved myself a couple of commission checks for sure. Well, Marty, I'd love to kind of pick your brain a little bit on like the leadership and the marketing seat that you're in today. I love talking about material handling and all of the changes that's in the market. But man, I'll tell you what, I haven't talked to too many CMOs that started out as an engineer. Could imagine that perspective you bring to the seat is a unique and valuable one. And when did your marketing journey begin, and how does that really kind of change and mold your perspective today?
The one thing I didn't share with you earlier when I went through what seemed like a 30-minute discussion about my background was, before I joined Heister Yale as a design engineer in New Jersey, the job market in 1991 when I graduated was horrible. It was absolutely atrocious. And I just remember feeling this level of anxiety of, oh my God, after college and after graduation, I'm going to have to move back home with mom and dad. So one thing I didn't tell you is that I did spend 1 year before Heister Yale and finding an engineering job with them. I served as a sales coordinator, an inside sales coordinator, working for a company called Hill Refrigeration. I think they're called Hill Phoenix now, but they build like the big refrigerated cabinets for grocery stores and supermarket chains. And so I was a sales coordinator for a year. That was crazy because I was new to the workforce. But then, a year later, I went into engineering, and I did that for, about 4 or 5 years with Heister Yale. One thing I recognized in working as an engineer is that I really did miss the people aspect of the business. When you're sitting behind a computer screen and you're designing a forklift, I realized that my exposure to the market was somewhat limited. Talked to my boss, I worked with my teammates, but I never got to be exposed really to the dealers and to the end users. And I really felt that I was missing something. So that was really the driver that led me out of engineering at a young age, at the age of, I think it was 28 years old, and started exploring the area outside of engineering. Now, I did manage to maintain my technical side by getting into service engineering, which is where I really understood or started to understand the business, because as an engineer, yes, things break down, but when you're on the other end of the phone call from a dealer who's irate because his forklift is down and you can't figure out why, it's called baptism by fire. You learn very quickly to find out how to get answers quickly and to get those forklifts back up and running. So that was kind of my real entrance into the market, but I loved it. I mean, it was stressful, it was high pace, but I absolutely loved that interaction, and really migrating from a technical side to where I'm sitting today, which is completely, light years different where I thought I would ever end up being as a young professional, leading at this stage of my life as, chief marketing officer for this amazing company called Big Joe. I think that technical side has really helped me because I still interact with engineers. And some of my best friends in this industry are engineers and are very technical. And I can still turn my engine nerd on when I have to. I'm probably not the best engineer in the world. I probably not would have not have been the best engineer in the world had I stayed in engineering. But I really do value the work that the engineers put into it. I mean, again, they're all have that same DNA of wanting to build something. I share that DNA, and then just being able to connect with engineers, but also being able to take my engineer technical hat off and put the marketing hat back on and really build something on the marketing side, and really interacting with amazing dealer partners and customers. There's really nothing more rewarding or rewarding than that. So it's been an exciting journey for me to start off as an engineer and somehow end up in marketing.
Hey, this will be a little bit off the cuff question for you, but a lot of great marketers will always say that you create the demand and then build the product. And then a lot of engineers will say you build the best product and the demand creates itself. Do you have an opinion on which one leads first?
Yes, yeah, I was very much of that opinion as a young engineer, not knowing anything about anything. That I just didn't understand, why the things that I design, like why did I have to put all this effort behind selling it? I mean, I and an amazing group of engineers designed it. The thing should just sell itself. That's where we're being exposed to the marketing side of the business, especially those 14 years I spent with Toyota under Brett Wood and that team there really exposed me to how important it was to take the amazing products that engineers pour their hearts into and to put a direction to it and to really put a program together to really target the market, what area you're going to market, what are the pains that you want to address with this solution. Yeah, so I can relate to what you just said.
Well, Marty, I could imagine across some of your different roles amongst your tenure, you've had a chance to kind of build a lot of different teams, maybe on the engineering and operations side, some on the go-to-market functions. Is there any methodologies or ways you go about to building teams, or what you look for in scaling your organizations?
We have so much good talent coming in this industry. And, right now, since Big Joe is in a transitional phase where we're growing and we're growing fast, we're bringing a lot of talent in. One of the things that I look for is really fit. Your experience is always, obviously it's very important to have you have relevant experience, but looking at the cultural fit, how is this individual going to contribute? How are they going to blend in with the culture that we have? Because we have a very unique culture here at Big Joe. Everybody really, really embraces it. And we want people on our team that also embrace that similar culture and that similar style. I say the biggest thing as far as team building, and especially my evolving over the years, becoming, a leader in this, not only for this company, but, I would say a leader in this industry, is probably the approach on how you treat failure. Failure is something that is typically viewed as bad. But as I've grown through the industry, and especially being in the leadership roles, I actually embrace it. And I want to cultivate my team to understand that risk is a part of growing. We all do it. You mentioned it earlier when you said you screwed up something on your quote, but you learn from it. And that's the only way we learn, is by, assessing risk, being bold, trying new things, knowing that failure could be the result, but not to look at failure as the end, but actually as possibly the beginning. So, I've had a number of instances in my career where I've completely thought it was just a miserable experience to fail. But I understand if I didn't go through that process and fail, it wouldn't have opened up a door to something that ended up working and being great. And that's what I'm looking for when we build teams here is we at Big Joe, we like to move fast. We also like to fail fast if we're going to fail. And that's not for everybody. Some people are not used to that kind of environment. So when we're building teams here at Big Joe, and especially with me and my background, just the acceptance that failure is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And to really instill in your team as a whole that, risk is a part of business, failure is a part of business, it's a part of life. And that's how we grow, and that's how we learn, and that's how we get better, is to fail, have enough confidence in yourself to get up and dust yourself off. What did I learn from it? And just keep going.
Well, Marty, I do want to respect your time today. One thing we do on our podcast every single episode is kind of related to some of our core principles here at our organization too, but it's a segment around giving back. We try to highlight some things that are important to people. I think at some point in everybody's life, there comes a time where community or involvement and helping others is a big piece. Is there any charity or community initiative that you care about that you want to highlight?
I have two that come to mind. One I'm very engaged in because number one, I live here in Portland, and I don't know if everybody watches the news about Portland. I mean, it's not burning down, so it's actually very beautiful here in Portland. But like any big city, we have our challenges with homeless. A lot of veterans that we have are on the streets here, and I see it. I see it all the time here in Portland specifically because we've got a large population of homeless, and a lot of those homeless are veterans. I've always been a huge advocate. I've been contributing for years for Tunnels to Towers. I think that is an unbelievable organization. Everything that Frank Stiller has done for that community of veterans coming back. Regardless of what their situation is, especially the ones that have lost their lives in battle and they have spouses and families that they have to take care of. It's really a big deal for me. So I contribute to that. That's T2T.org. I think everybody's seen the commercials on TV. It's just an amazing organization. The second one is something that's near and dear to me. My wife, her mother has dementia, and I'd say the last 2.5, almost 3 years of our lives have been committed to taking care of her and getting her. And it's a very long, complex situation, but ultimately it results in having to sacrifice several years of your life to carry the cross to make sure that our parents, our family, are taken care of. And dementia just seems, I don't know why, but dementia just seems like it's a lot more widespread. I have a lot of friends that are in my age, approaching 60 years old, and their parents are having challenges with dementia. And so there's another society called Dementia Society of America. It's just dementiasociety.org. They're a society that's really focused on helping, organizations and helping people that have dementia and families that have dementia. And I tell you what, I mean, after seeing the memory care facility that my mother-in-law is in, it needs help. I mean, it desperately needs help. I'm not sure why. The amount of money that people are spending to take care of family members having dementia it's so expensive, and not everybody can afford it. But hopefully, with the work of Dementia Society of America, hopefully things like that will make things better in the future.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I personally have some family members that are kind of going through this situation right now, and it's a serious thing. So thank you for highlighting those, and for the listeners, definitely reach out if you want to get plugged in and begin to help out on those two things. Well, Marty, to begin to wrap out this segment or this podcast today, we do a segment called Load It or Leave It, essentially what the podcast is named after. I'll throw a mix of like 4 or 5 random things at you. It could be leadership, industry topics, and miscellaneous things. And you either load it, meaning you're in and you're on board, or you leave it. Like at the loading dock, it's a hard pass. Yeah, you're not a big fan. So no need to give quick answers. If you want to expand on anything, feel free to. But I'll jump right in. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right, let's go. All right, this first one, a little bit personal, but I know you mentioned that you kind of grew up in Jersey for some time, now out on the West Coast. Load it or leave it. West Coast living is best.
My friends are going to kill me when I say this. I'm going to say loaded. I'm totally in. I love West Coast living. Would I move back to California? Probably not. I've fallen in love with the greenery. As you can tell behind me, the Pacific Northwest is beautiful. But I do have to tell you, Scott, I love getting back to the Jersey Shore. I do it every year. The beach for me will always be the Jersey Shore. It'll never be Southern California, as beautiful as they are. It'll never be the Oregon coast. When people say the ocean, I think of the Jersey Shore. So it's a tough one, but I'd say West Coast living. Yeah, I load it.
Yeah, I like it. I'm an Atlanta native, born and raised, so I need to make it up to the Jersey Shore before I join you on that one. But I could imagine it's hard to beat the West Coast. All right, load it or leave it. Industry trade shows like Modex and ProMat.
In my past, I would have said to leave it, but my tune has changed, especially after joining Big Joe and some of the things we're doing here. We really are trying to elevate Big Joe so people don't think we're just a niche player in the warehouse market, that we're much bigger. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to do these trade shows. And Modex and ProMat, I mean, they always do a top-notch job in the industry, and they do so many amazing things for the industry, with MHI. But for the time that I'm living in right now with Big Joe, I'd say load it.
Yep, I love it. Well said. Load it or leave it. AI search engine optimization for lead gen in the material handling space.
Absolutely. You got to load that too. And I'm guilty of this. If you don't embrace and start researching AI, you're going to find yourself behind. Lead gen has evolved significantly over the years. And I think AI is just going to simply take it to an entire new level. Now, are there frustrations with AI and robots calling me and trying to get me to sign up for things? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I think I'm talking to a robot and not an actual person. That part of it, I'd say leave it, but it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve fast. And I think you need to get on board with it now.
Yeah, agreed. I think with your title, I could imagine how many AI cold outreach messages you were getting on a week-to-week basis. I bet it's unreal. Load it or leave it. Forklifts will be replaced with automation.
I'm going to say leave it. It's almost like, lead acid batteries. There will always be a place for lead acid technology. Not all of it is going to be replaced with lithium ion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that one is definitely, there's always going to be room for people on forklifts. Much of it will be automated, especially those redundant tasks. And I can deploy that person that's going from point A to point B and deploy them on more value added tasks within the facility. But I would say hard pass on that one.
Yeah, it's a hard argument to make. I think the American stats are pretty strong too, but I think the forklift game is going to be in a good spot in the next decade or two to come. This last one, as we round out this segment, Marty, load it or leave it. Knowing what you now know, would 22-year-old Marty get back into the MHE game?
Oh, without a doubt. I had this discussion all the time, especially with the younger generation that are in college. They ask about my journey, especially engineers that are in college that are looking to find their way. And I tell them about this industry. And if I could go back to 22-year-old me, which I wish I could in some ways I wish I can't, I didn't or couldn't, but I'd say this is an amazing industry filled with amazing people, amazing leaders that are passionate. I mean, it's a very unique industry that even our competitors, we know each other. It's a very tight industry. People jump ship. There's always a saying that once you get in this industry, if you're here for a couple of years, that's it. You'll never get out. I tried getting out once in my life after Toyota and before, going up to Portland to join Cascade. But I quickly found myself missing the industry. I got right back into it and I have no regrets, and I would go back and do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it reels you in. It finds a way to bring you back. Well, Marty, absolute pleasure today. It's not common to kind of sit here and talk with a person of your caliber, pedigree, and experience. I think for anybody listening today, there was a lot of great takeaways and really cool to kind of get a peek behind the curtains at Big Joe as well. So thank you so much for your time today. Anything from your side of things that you want to speak to before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered a lot of grounds. It was great, but thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Marty. Well, best of luck finishing out the year over at Big Joe, and thanks for your time. Talk soon.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for listening to Load It or Leave It with your host, Camp Jennings, presented by Henry North. To connect with Camp, find him on LinkedIn. Whether you're looking to build out your team or navigate your own career, trust that Henry North can help.